Please.
To be fair, I had CPR training in the exact same room too.
There's one first story left.
I'm with you, I'm like, I have another meeting after.
Oh,
my God.
obviously,
One maybe? Yeah. This is 301. Yeah. The kitchen.
It's the recreation center on events. The event space, so it's the recreation center.
There's someone in this lab, there's like, you're such a millennial. That's just millennial.
I'm really confused.
I don't even notice my screens here.
Me and Sophia, we moved to the short gap. And
I think I might as well be done.
in the university and in college. Yeah, it is a problem. It's next to the restaurant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our S&A meeting for February 7th. If you'll take a look at our agenda, we do have a couple things to do today. So let's get right to it. I call this meeting to order at 2:01 p.m. Alrighty, let's move forward with the agenda approval. I'll give you a few moments to look it over, see if there's any additions or anything. Or amendments. Question on the agenda. So for old business, it's a supplemental funding request deliberation. What is that specifically? Is there anything that we specifically have to deliberate on? I'm not sure, because usually we have like what we deliberate on.
Last week's agenda, is what you're referring to.
On the old business.
Yeah, so we just left that in there. We did not have any discussion last week regarding it. It's just an agenda,
Oh,
running agenda item.
right. I'm looking for a motion to approve today's agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve today's agenda.
Is there a second? A second. Okay, see that there's a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, all those in favor of today's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we have quorum? Oscar.
And right. Maybe not with, well, we do, there's 3 of 6. Because you're non-voting anyway, so it's 3 of 5, so it's majority.
The ayes have it. The agenda is approved for today. Next, we'll be moving forward with the approval of meeting minutes from last meeting. I'll give you a few moments to look that over and add any or amend any parts of it. Alrighty, I'm looking for a motion to approve last week's meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve last week's meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seeing that there's a second, is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The meeting minutes are approved. All right, next we'll be moving forward with reports, starting with the chair. I have no reports. Next, advisors.
I have no reports.
Okay. Next, ASCWU.
No reports.
And we let the record, the minutes reflect that Nick via. Are you? No, you're.
Yeah.
Via, Nick Via is now present. Alrighty.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that.
Okay, next we'll be moving forward with communications received. Is there any communications?
We did receive communication that the supplemental funding request for, Paul was approved for the travel limit you all recommended last week. Has been approved.
Next, I'll be making my first call of public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Alrighty, seeing that there is no public comment, we'll move forward with new business, starting with supplemental funding request, item 2512, reallocation of funding from supplemental request 2501. You have.
Guys, it's so good to be up in front of you all again. We wanted to come to talk to you today about the CNW funds that you approved for us back in fall to be used for Pulse. That money was to cover salaries, and part of that money was also to go to Observer to cover a salary position there. I don't think that we made it clear that we also wanted to use whatever remaining money was there for travel expenses. And one of the reasons why we wanted to come in front of you today is that Observer, who was on a trip to New Orleans at the time we gave that supplemental fund request, that was supposed to be covered by their budget, unfortunately overspent on that trip, and we're hoping to use the funds that you approved for Pulse to cover those travel expenses for Observer. To kind of give you a rundown of what happened, the amount that we asked for was $18,615. That was the CNW budget before the 15% reduction. That trip, that Observer and Pulse students, both student media organizations were represented at that conference, overspent that trip by about $5,000. That was due to an unforeseen expense in hotel room fees, travel agent fees, and last minute booking for flights. When we budgeted for that trip, that was a few weeks out from the trip, and because it takes time for those things to get approved, and we can't ask the travel agent to approve or book those flights before the travel authorization is approved, those flight prices went up, as well as a charge for using the travel agent that was not accounted for. So basically today we want to ask you to take the funds that you have already approved for Pulse and allow us to cover those travel expenses. To be completely candor, this was my fault. As the business manager, I've been in my position for 2 years, and last year was really the first time that are you looking for CPR?
Yes.
They're in 201.
201?
Yeah.
Hey,
I ran into their person in the elevator. I've been in my position for 2 years, and last year was the first time that I've had to forecast a budget for an entire year. And I did not budget appropriately for the positions that are needed to run the paper. And at the time when we booked to go to the conference, we assumed that we had enough money because the forecast said that we would be 11,000 in the black. So that on top of the fees that were not accounted for, we grossly overestimated or underestimated, whichever one it is, how much it would cost. So kind of give you a reassurance of why that won't happen again is I am aware of my mistake, and I know how to better account for it in the future now that I've been in my position for 2 years and have been through that process. And I would love for the Observer students who are here to give a testimony of how the conference went and why it was important to them.
Yeah, the conference was very important for me. At the time, I was only sports editor. Now I'm a co-editor in chief. So I did spend a lot of my time kind of going over sports section stuff. I also work at 88.1 as well. So I did a lot of podcasting stuff there that I feel like benefited not only the Observer, but some of the students who read the Observer as well. And anyone who reads the Observer, I feel like we did a lot of great stuff learning how to kind of get it more student oriented as well. If you see it in some of our past issues, we're kind of letting the students use their voices a lot more. And what we're doing with that is covering on certain topics going around in the world today and getting like almost full quote pages based on what the students are thinking about it, getting it more student oriented. And I think we're also doing a good job of almost holding the university accountable for some stuff too, and covering on certain topics early in the year or early in this quarter. I was informed about the Brooks Library kind of having some heating issues in there. And I learned a lot about kind of from some speakers in New Orleans, like how to cover investigative journalism, which is something I've never done in the news field. I've done in sports and stuff, but I feel like a lot of the stuff we learned there greatly benefited us. And not only did it benefit the paper, I feel like it benefited us all as a group too. I feel like it was almost like, obviously we're there on business, learning stuff too, but I feel like we team bonding came out of that very well as well. So I was very happy with how the conference went. I feel like I gained a lot out of it. I know everyone else who attended gained a lot out of it. And there was also leadership stuff that I got to attend as well. It was like one leadership meeting, which I grew up in Boy Scouts. So I did like NYLT, National Youth Leadership Training, but I never quite got the experience to get that applicable to the newsroom and stuff like that. And so a lot of the conference or the panels we went to were very helpful in that sense. And once again, I just feel like it benefited not only the paper, but the students who read it as well, and the fluidity of how stuff reads, how stuff looks. Learning a lot about, personally, I'm not familiar with graphic design too much, but I think I even learned a lot about it there too, which is something I never had any experience with. So I think it just expanded my all-around game of journalism too, when it comes to the writing, reporting, and just design, and getting it more understandable for the students to read as well.
Hi, I'm Z Morris. I'm the lead graphic designer at the newspaper. And at the conference, I attended primarily design panels and the writing and design panels. And from that, what I think always stands out to me about the Observer is our catchphrase by the students for the students. Because of that, it is my charge as a lead graphic designer to make a paper that is for the students and looks like it is for the students. The stuff that I learned at New Orleans really influenced me to think about the user, to think about the user design. What happens when that person sees the paper? What makes them encouraged to pick it up and learn and read about what is happening on campus and informative design. Informative design does not need to be anything bland, and I think that many students really like to pick up things that are kind of look like something that they would want to read instead of like their grandpa, you know? So I like to have a more modern, a more innovative approach to the paper, because it's also very important for these students to read these stories. I mean, this last issue, we had a huge story about stuff that is happening around immigration, stuff that affects many students at Central Washington University. And it is through what I've learned at New Orleans and in the ACP conferences that are happening that I was able to take that design in a neutral approach and in an informative approach for the students, because it's stories like these that we have the opportunity to share with the rest of our student body. And you know, this year is going to be full of more news to share with everybody. And I want to make sure that everybody can get a copy of the paper, that everybody can understand the paper on a legibility standpoint, but also have a dynamic and creative design. So that way people want to look at it. People want to read this thing. Yeah, and I was so fortunate to be able to talk to so many people that are designers across the nation. I mean, it is so cool to be connected into a nationwide editorial standpoint. So it's really cool to get into more design fields that are outside of Ellensburg, because, you know, Ellensburg is just so big, right? But you know, I'm able to talk to people in New York and have connections through there. And I encourage, you know, all of my designers to be able to talk to people that are outside of their little area and, you know, really take into account those outside sources as well to make a more informative and powerful paper.
I also just want to end on the fact that we are not just seeking these funds that we're asking you today. We're also planning on being a part of Give Central 2025. We have plans with our chair to use some of the foundation money that's reserved in our account for spring 2025. So we are looking for other possible solutions, not just coming for the S&A committee, because I know you all know my face so well.
Thank you. Thank you. For the question. We'll be moving forward with a 10-minute questioning period. Is there any questions?
Yes, I just wanted to be clear, you're looking to move approved supplemental funding from Pulse over to the Observer, correct? That's correct. Okay.
And I'd like to make a clarifying point for the committee members, just so you know, it's already accounted for in your supplemental. So it's not an additional reduction in what you have left to allocate.
Just a hypothetical question. What would happen if the S&A chose to maybe, or what would happen if this did not happen?
That money would go to the Pulse account, and Pulse, who is facing a little bit of a deficit right now. That money would account for their salaries, not necessarily cover that deficit, but it's money that you've already approved to cover salary positions we wanted to include for this quarter. And since we're facing a deficit in Pulse, we may have to revisit that in spring quarter to balance the budget.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Okay, moving forward with our agenda. Next up, we have a funding request, a presentation from the Office of Undergraduate Research, a source. You have a
Welcome, just click through, and then you have 10 minutes to present your life and registration of this.
Thank you. Oh, welcome to us, I guess. I'm on presenter mode. Sorry. Thank you for having us today. My name is Ash Perrin. I'm the program coordinator for undergraduate studies, but a primary part of my role is organizing the source, not just event planning, but all the logistics, including planning the event, but making sure I'm paying for all the purchases that are required to put it on, and also giving students award money so they can pursue their research. And we also have Dr. Hideki Take today, who is the OUR director. So we're here to review hopefully our S&A funding that we get from y'all for specifically OUR. So not just source, but our office and funding the research too. So a big aspect is that we give award money to students so they can attend conferences, much like the one that was just talked about right before this point, as well as any other like supplies that may come into play, things that they need to foster their resource that they may be able to not get fund on their own. So the grants are funded by S&A, but we do have some other external partners. So we have Foundry Pen that helps fund it, and we get some money from the provost office as well. And we give grants to undergraduate students. So if your research or your creative activity aligns with the specific grant, you're eligible to apply as long as you have a mentor signed off as well. So someone that's typically a faculty member on campus, sometimes staff, but most often faculty. And then apart from those grant monies, we rely on S&A to fund the source event itself. And if you're not familiar, I'll go into it a little bit more too, but it is a professional research conference that we have here on campus every year that really emulates the atmosphere of what it's like to be at a conference for research in a way that not a lot of other universities are doing right now, even nationwide. It's so like we're doing the networking piece and we're resume building for students to showcase their research. So it's an acronym, like one of many at CWU. So student that says the Symposium of University Research and Creative Expression. And so a little historical piece, it used to be just in the College of the Sciences. And over the years, it's expanded to encompass all creative activities on campus, all scholastic endeavors. So the CE part, creative expression, has been really awesome. We've been able to welcome groups from the music department and theater and dance and the sport and movement study department, art and design, and really like showcase what people are doing. So I like to say that my job is to celebrate what students are doing on campus. As of last year, we have an ISSN number 2, so we're part of the Library of Congress. So we get the proceedings get published. So it's a resume builder for students as well. I mean, it helps faculty as well moving forward. And starting this year, which is the 30th anniversary, we are going to have a journal that's digital. So students can have an opportunity to publish their full papers, which is really exciting to have that, say they're published as an undergrad right out of their graduation. So it really does, it's a professional atmosphere if you've experienced it. We take over the entire circ and we have a pretty tight conference schedule. And I think we have a great team of volunteers. It's streamlined and it feels like you're checking in at a hotel in like Bellevue or something. So it's been really fun. And last year we had the highest attendee count historically, which was really exciting for us. And we're starting to incorporate local partners as well. So we're working with the Downtown Association to get local businesses involved. And we've been partnering with high schools we have Yakima, the Eisenhower High School in Yakima. Ellensburg High School had 7 poster presenters. That's that non-CWU presentations there. So we're really engaging with the community as well and helping kind of give a pipeline for local students to see themselves here at CWU and for anybody to see themselves in research, even if you're like a French horn player, that's research. That's great. And then we had the second highest presenter count last year, and we're hoping to beat that this year at the 30th anniversary. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hideki Take to talk a little bit more about the data that we've collected.
We respect the fund from you guys. We try to assess as much as we can. So we use the numbers. So how many students apply for how many students we actually grant the grant. How many students actually participate in source, also another event. So based on the numbers, we are very happy to actually tell you that we are doing a pretty good job for that. So first of all, the last year, we have 33 grant applications from the 4 colleges. We offer 31 applications. And in the winter, we have 31 grant applications from the same colleges. We funded 29 applications, and 60 of them actually funded, and they presented at the source successfully. And also they attended some of the events or conference as usual. So these people actually showing the great performance based on our fund. Thank you. And also, as Ash said, we have 491 students attend source 2024. It was very successful, and people recognize the importance of source. And there are 120 oral presentation, 170 poster presentation here. And if you look at this participation by the class standing, now we actually a lot of freshmen and sophomore, junior. That means we used to have only senior student there or graduate student. Now we expand our horizon to this younger generation to actually participate in a source. That also is something helping us to fund them. So we try to focus on how we can fund the younger generation. I mean, you guys are young anyway, but freshmen, sophomore, the kind of people, including transfer students. Go ahead. So again, we have some comparison between traditional and underrepresented student groups. So we are working on that by using your fund. So we actually organize Kickstart, which actually encourage underrepresented students to actually participate in source, because these people are very difficult situation there. So, but we have successfully increased at least certain amount. We continue that. And plus, we radically increase the transfer student, which is really good idea. So we actually presenting in the orientation how transfer student can be included in the source through our fund. And we are happy about, we have pretty much equal gender distribution as well. So we're actually happy about that. And first generation status, in addition to the underrepresented student bodies, also we focus on first generation students. So again, we're doing our best to increase that. We continue the same thing for this year with your fund. Now, this is just a usual picture of the source, but we are only focused on graduates. We are both focused on graduate and undergraduate students, but we try to actually a little bit, play with this portion next year. Because we're going to work with the graduate school to actually, enrich the grant program together. And here, this is traditionally coach is dominating it, but we are focusing on car, particularly for next year, particularly art side, creative side, because it should be fair and should be included. So we try to give an equity through your fund. Go ahead. So I think we are using your money pretty well, and I actually appreciate your support for this program, and I'm looking for the continuous support from your side. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
So there, you notice there's the other slide. I just want to point out that purple sliver is like a lot of Douglas Honors College students. And so they represent people all over campus as well too. And they're a huge partner of ours for Source. And then Hideki raised a good point. He mentioned that Kickstart event. So that's another thing we do with part of the Source program as a whole is that we do offer something each quarter to help students prepare for Source. So we have Kickstart in the fall, and then we have How to Source, which is coming up on February 26th, if any of you are interested in presenting at Source. And that is How to Source is fun because it's a poster presentation like you'd receive at a conference, but it is all about Source. So how to be successful. And we have campus partners such as Career Services and the Multimodal Education Center there to really help people hit the ground running with their research. So thought I'd throw that into the mix as well. And another way we use some of the funding. Any questions?
Oh, sorry. Good. My first question is, I'm looking at your programming throughout 2022 to 2024. I saw a big increase. Is that just an increase in size of Source? Or?
Yeah, great question. So participation, so it has to do with like attendee counts, but it's worth mentioning that COVID, like many things kind of fizzled out during COVID. And so I guess some background for y'all is that we were online in COVID, and this is what we both started. 2023 was our first year on the Source team. And so they had 2 years online. 2022 was a hybrid year. And so it was a very interesting year for folks, and it took place all over campus. So 2023, no, sorry. 2023 was the first hybrid that year. So 24 was our first, like, hey, we're back in full glory on campus. So I think that alone kind of helps, you know, in terms of increase the count, but also it reflects why we had lower participation in the years leading up to that. Did I satisfy that question? Okay.
I'm looking at your budget financial overview, and I'm just curious what the Source consider as repairs maintenance, because it's going pretty high. I mean, 2022 was 240, and then 2024 was 1400. What are those things that are
Increasing the source down there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be candid, you know, I wanted to base this off of previous requests because I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I personally haven't put anything on a repair and maintenance account code. So
we try to actually play with the existing framework as much as we can. So if you actually fund us, we actually use the grant, not only for the presentation, but also we're gonna actually create the online journal this year. So the state can actually utilize more than that. So I'm not asking you so much money anymore because we have a limited budget, but I just telling you, we actually try to expand the performance of your money through our activities. And also answer back to you how we actually increase numbers, because we have a systematic issue that Source is getting away from the student. So our task was we have to bring everything back to the student. So that's why the last year we actually made an effort that, hey, Source is for students. All your fund is for students. So we actually really promote that particular, including a lot of students. So that was actually the case. And this policy will be continued with a new director. So you will see the same thing the next following year.
Oscar, did you have a question?
I was gonna ask the same, like, I've seen on services the last year, you guys went from 4,500 to 0, was there like a change, or like what caused that that changed?
yeah, so again, just like being candid with me being new in my role and never requesting anything like this, just using what we had, because I didn't want to ask for anything that we haven't asked for in the past. So I don't think I can give a really great answer because my predecessor is no longer at the institution. And so I was trying my best to honor like Source as it stands, and I'm still learning. To be frank, so.
Okay, cool.
jump in on that. For both of those questions regarding the budget, I will email you all some more information because I am their budget support person as well. And so I can help get answers to those. I'm looking it up right now, but I'm not good at working on this size of a screen with my eyesight, so we'll see what I can do, but I can provide some more.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a good learning opportunity for me too, so.
So I had a question about. You have a student, employee, student assistant listed under like you. Do you have a student employee currently, or is that an open position?
Not this year. So this year, so we had that student employee, we had a grad student. I guess maybe this is like a little extra detail, but Katie was the one person who had done source before. We were both in our role last year, and Katie was still a grad student last year. Katie's still around working, finishing up their thesis, so we were able to hire them full-time as a non-permanent person, and then that's kind of helping us because, you know, we were all facing budget cuts this year too, so that worked out. That didn't come out of source budget. So Katie actually does, like me, supports, I have 5 other programs that I support on campus as well. So we're undergrad studies, but Katie's been able to really help out with source this year, though we do anticipate maybe use help next year because we won't have Katie in future years. And I personally believe like having student employees is high impact, not only because it's giving them income, but it's helps me and my team stay more on the ground with what students are interested in and helping make source a really great experience for them. I have opinions that may be outdated from when I was a college student here at Central. So, and I just really always appreciate that perspective, even from like some of the things we do are like design work. So I want to make sure that's really visually appealing too, and that we're always amazing.
Follow up to that. Acquiring a student employee, is that already included in the new budget you're giving us, or?
I believe so, yes, yeah.
Is there any other questions? Could you talk about again how you're planning to diversify the types of students and what colleges they come from? Like more, I know you talked about having more art students and more art projects. How do you plan to do?
First of all, we actually expand our scope through the poster development for the next source. So we haven't really like recognized their effort, but last year we finally recognized it. But this year we're gonna have a special session with artists, and also we are supporting if the student go to exhibition, we actually support them. So now we are actually promoting them. Hey, you can use this way, you can use that way. Because a lot of other students think, oh, that's a scholastic activity. That's not true. So we actually promote in a different way. So we change the communication. That's how we do that. And also we make a sequence. Kickstart is focusing on first generation, transfer students, and freshman and sophomore. So we say, hey, here's a source. And these are great opportunity for employability and also the enriching your college life. Then if you're interested, then go to the how-to source. Then we actually teach you how to make an abstract, right? And also we work with the faculty members to make sure that young people actually, encouraged to do it. Also, we actually talk with the college and high school student too. So we actually go into a different direction, more like outreaching them. So because senior students, they know source. Yeah, graduate students, they know it. But so the kind of people you're talking about, the group, we have to go there and we are going there.
To add to that too, to clarify too, the poster session that Nick was just referencing is, so every your source has a promo poster, and it's actually a graphic design class on campus that designs it. And they have such a quick timeline, and so they work really hard. And then at source every year, we have the top 5 or 6 designs, and the community votes on the winner. And so it's usually just gone that way. So last year we brought the winning poster design student and honored them at the award ceremony. And this year we're doing a special session. So each of the runners up, I guess, if you will, those 5 or 6 students will be able to have a panel presentation to talk about their design. And I'm really hoping that'll help, like the word of mouth will help their peers come, and maybe some students maybe they're in their first 2 years and they're in the exploratory phase and they see something at that panel that makes them want to get involved in the arts. We're also expanding, this isn't quite the art college, but in terms of increasing, diversifying who's involved, is we're expanding to the centers, the CW centers, because I'm really passionate about them feeling part about the campus in Ellensburg as much as possible, not being left out. So last year we did a demo of like a PR software of what could be done. And this year, we're gonna have a section of the deputies class based on the west side. Meet with another professor here on campus, Dr. Gary Myers. They'll have a section down in the VR lab at Samuelson, and they're gonna present to each other in virtual reality at Source. So we're trying to get the centers involved as well as, like we mentioned, the local communities. And I'm doing a lot of relationship building on campus. So I have several other partners that are in College of Arts and Humanities and College of Sciences. So just this morning, I connected with someone I know from the Latino Latin American Studies program to promote the Jury to Art exhibition that'll be happening in Sarah Spurgeon Gallery during Source. So we're gonna send people up that way, and we're gonna promote it 2 weeks ahead of time. So we're trying to build relationships, and I've even I sent a letter to the music department chair to send out to their faculty about how KCE is a part of the acronym of Source, and we want to highlight y'all. So we're doing a lot of on the ground efforts to let people, especially faculty, know like, hey, we see you, but we're a different, little different beast than it used to be, and we want to bring you into the fold.
Is there any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As somebody who will be using source funding, I appreciate the arts.
Oh,
The arts area.
Love being able to do it.
Alrighty, moving forward with our next agenda item. Sorry, one moment. We have the transfer center. You have.
And I wanted to take one of the committee on this. Eric asked a good question, and I apologize, it's my fault. I did find Megan's supplemental additions, the budget itemized list. It's in the team, so you all can pull it up to see what she provided she'll be spending her funds on.
I'm sorry, I didn't send you the presentation
That's
yesterday. I saw the note to do so today. So hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Megan McConnell. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of the Transfer Center. This is the first time we've ever made an S&A request, and that's honestly a mistake. So the Transfer Center, you can see here, were established in February 2020. So I just passed my 5-year anniversary in this role. I was in the office about 6 weeks when the pandemic shut us down, and then everything was haywire, right? So I think the next year that there was the quadrennium funding was this time of year, 4 years ago, 2021, still in pandemic mode. I was oblivious. I came out of academic advising, didn't know anything about the possibility of doing funding. So we've been operating really on a shoestring budget and with donations from a lot of individuals, namely myself. I buy treats every Tuesday and bring them into the lounge, and some other folks as well. So our mission statement is to supporting the successful transfer, persistence, and graduation of transfer students. So I want to specifically call that out because that's 3 separate phases that our foundational documents laid out that they wanted to see us support transfer students in. Our team, over on the left, 3 individuals are all our pro staff folks. So Jan and Renata is stationed over at CW Des Moines, and they do a lot of work in the prospective students phase, talking to students about why CWU, making sure they understand how to plan their transfer coursework appropriately for the major they may have in mind. And then our peer ambassadors, Tyler transferred from CBC, Carrie came from Blue Mountain Community College in Oregon, and Melinda came from University of Alaska Fairbanks. So they're all transfer students themselves. They work in the lounge. They plan the events in our living learning community. They plan other events as well, like our Valentine making event that we have all next week. So there's sort of a little bit of a division of the phases. Going on with the phase-ins, when students are in the preparation stage, we're visiting community colleges, we're working with academic departments to plan documents, to create documents that say, hey, if you want to major in biology, here's the courses that you should take prior in your first 2 years, or, if you're majoring in law and justice, you don't really have to do much of anything besides just take a DTA. But anyway, so we do that these are the things we do in that preparation stage. The peer ambassadors do work a lot with prospective student questions that come into the lounge, either the phone number or the email address. Then we During the transition stage, I'm working very closely with Robbie and orientation. This year, we were really pleased to offer a transfer orientation specifically mandated for Ellensburg students. We are working during week of welcome. We try to make sure that students have some sort of incentive to come into the lounge, to find our space, to find where they might connect with other transfer students. And then in that progression stage with, mentoring peer-to-peer, workshops and events to build community and sense of belonging. Because one of the things that I often tell incoming transfer students is we see transfer students by any metric outperform their first year counterparts in terms of our retention, graduation rates. They're strong students. But what we heard before the transfer center was created was 3 months, 5 months down the line after starting, you'd hear transfer students saying, it's a little bit harder to get connected socially here than it was at my community college. Some of that has been structural. We didn't require them to go to orientation. We didn't require them to live on campus. There was no University 101, right? They've done college before, and in many ways, we wanted to respect that knowledge base and world experience for having done that. But what it meant is that we didn't always have great onboarding for them. So building community events is really important as well. I always tell people, invest some time in finding your people, because when you break up with your better half, or you fail an exam, you're going to want your people, somebody who can, sort of get you through. So who we serve, because that was one of the things that was asked of some metrics, over 40%, going back to the last 5 years, it's been 41 to 43% of our students are transfer students. That's system wide. And of course, at the centers and online, nearly all of those students are transfers. So when we're talking about the Ellensburg campus, it is almost 30%. We gather a number of statistics. I didn't want to bother you with the number of emails we answer, the number of phone calls we answer. I have my peers keep track of all of that, but just lounge usage. Who comes into our lounge to use the space where we've got a fridge, microwave, puzzles, games, computers, free printing. We had these are not, I shouldn't have said students. These are counts. So one student might come in 3 times a week, but that student visits is what that should actually say. And so far this year, 530 students have been using the lounge. We've actually seen an uptick pretty significantly this year in students using the lounge. Our budget request, I think you probably have in the team. I have put it here just to remind myself because I submitted this in November and I don't remember things as well as I used to. But largely what we're looking to do is some of those community events, right? It's treats on Tuesday treat day, some sort of monthly craft activity where we'd invite people to come in. That very first, going back to the picture I chose, you'll see this 2-colored cord there. That's the cord we buy for transfer students. So that 2 different colors is to represent the blending together of 2 experiences. And we provide those for free to anybody who is graduating, who brought in transfer credit. And that's our biggest investment of the year. On the next slide, I'll talk about some of the survey work that we've done with students, but we'd love to do some field trips. We haven't had funding to do that thus far, just a van, honestly, and not one van initially, probably, but we'll see how that goes. We've done Boost Central. We've done an egg hunt in the spring that was tied to resources on campus to get new transfer students out to discover where is the study abroad office, et cetera. Some things for the LLC, and then some engagement contests that we would largely do through Instagram, probably, because that's where more of our students are these days. But to have some sort of prizes. None of my state dollars can go to support these kinds of things. I've been as creative as possible in using state dollars where I can, but mostly my money is for recruiting new students. That is what's funded. So every spring we do a transfer student survey. And I wanted to mention some of the things that have come up, which include some costs, right? The top 5 community building events that were desired this last spring among the transfer students who responded were day trips, outdoor activities, attending CWU sporting events together, some sort of volunteering. We've tried that before with Fish Food Bank. and then just informal hangouts. The top 5 educational and career events, we ask them the kinds of things that they want to see us do. Most of those I can do with no cost at all, right? Like I can get either myself or experts on campus to come in and talk about some of those things. We ask them how they would like us to provide these services. Of course, they do the 50-50. I really want to be in person. No, I really want to be online. Okay. 79% of our respondents transferred from a 2-year school, 21% from a 4-year school. One of the biggest things, though, I know when getting to assessment, which since we haven't gotten S&A funding before, I've been thinking about how we will assess the impact of these dollars if you see fit to grant it to us. We ask about some things that were helpful or not helpful. And those, we send newsletters to new transfer students the first 3 quarters they're here that summarizes, it's a little bit like a weekly version of highlighting any of our own events, but also other things that are happening on campus or in the community. And we always try to include some center and online events as well, since a lot of our students are there. And so 70% of students said the newsletters and emails were either very helpful or helpful. We wanted, one of the things that is an outcome to me in thinking about onboarding and building a sense of community and belonging is how aware are you of various resources? I can't take credit for all of that, right? There's a lot of other people that are trying to make students aware of resources, but I was pleased to see, you know, some pretty strong percentages among respondents saying they're aware of some things, but community building and basic needs continue to be the worst scoring among our transfer student population. Academic resources the most, and I think they're getting that also in the classroom, probably. A big one to me, I feel welcomed and included on campus. If you sum the strongly agreed, that's 89% of the transfer students who responded said that, and 75% said their transfer to CW was either easy or very easy. 88 won the Berg just did an interview with one of my peer ambassadors, Melinda, this morning, and it'll be airing on Monday. And I know the interviewer is herself a transfer student who'd been to 4 different colleges, who said that this was the best onboarding that she experienced. So I was like, yay. So I'm happy to answer any questions. This is my first time through this. Thank you all. You're also calm. You helped me stay calm when I'm coming with my handout asking for money, but I don't know what I might not have included that I should have included. So please feel free to ask questions.
Thank you for your visit. As a transfer student, I definitely see your passion for the center and the students, and I really appreciate that. Is there any questions?
One of my questions is for the castles, and that's a big portion of like your money for this. Where did that funding come from in previous?
Well, so the interesting things about goods and services budgets is that it's much easier than food budget to get purchases. So so things that I could fall under goods and services, I used some of my state funding for that. Yeah. But by then being able to use S&A dollars, what I would be able to do with that funding instead. So for example, source I actually wanted to mention to Hideki before he left is that I'm offering community colleges transportation. If they want to, we will reimburse vans to come to campus for either preview day or source. And I've got some connections in, he's trying to get the arts, Wenatchee Valley. We're working on an agreement with Wenatchee Valley College in the arts. I presented in a classroom last quarter at Spokane Falls Community College in the arts. So we've got some connections, some places where I'm like, well, let's get a van of students to come to do that if we're going to have an emphasis on the arts in this 30th year. So that's the kind of thing that then other pieces of my budget could go to fund. Yeah.
Thank you. That's one of my questions.
Any other questions? Oh, I just wanted to know if you could explain, so paying for the treats and the lounge supplies. These were previously purchased with the transfer center, like normal budget, correct?
Well, treats, no, because we can't buy food. So
that was your own money.
yeah, for 5 years now, I've just been bringing treats in every
Oh,
Tuesday.
your own.
My own money.
Oh.
As I have passion for transfer students and treats are not going to break me. But yeah.
That's my question.
It'd be very nice to not have to do that.
Oh, and then my other question, I'm just curious, does the transfer center have any revenue that or other sources of funding that?
We required the orientation, so the transfer student orientation was it's less expensive than the first year orientation. It lasts less time. But we did, Ellensburg students were required to do it this past year. I think it's a best practice. It's not because I wanted to saddle them with more money that they had to pay, but honestly, if any person was joining a company that is as large as our campus is in terms of employees, you'd expect them to need an orientation, right? So the fact that we had it as an optional thing before always struck me as like, why would it be optional? You may know how to do college, but you don't know where our tutors might be found. You don't know where our clubs and that orgs are, you know, based out of, or what kind of funding there might be if you want to start your own club. Like, you should have an orientation to an organization as complex as a university this size. So that's my other funding stream.
Quick question, on the survey, do you have a idea of what percentage of transfer students responded?
I do, but I don't remember it right now. I just pulled out some of the quotes that I thought were relevant for this group. But I can send it as a follow-up. Yeah, I don't think it. Would I say that I could say that the N is less than 0.05 or the you know, the P is less than 0.05? You get responded, right? Like there's a selection bias. There's a selection bias in who fills out those things. Yeah. What's that?
Survey document you provided.
Oh, did I put it in there? I don't remember doing that. That was November. I was on it. What did it say?
184.
184. Yeah, percentage wise.
Oh, actually, I guess some of these questions.
Oh, yeah, because not everybody answers them.
Any other questions?
Hey, Megan, I would like to know if you could share with the committee about the transfer student symposium.
The transfer symposium?
Yes, thank you.
So that's for faculty and staff, so it's not a student-centered event.
Yes, but it connects you and a lot of other institutions together to.
Yes. So we have historically held a symposium. It started before I was hired, and University Centers actually sort of was the key coordinators at that point in time. Before the pandemic, we held it at two different. No, I think we had 3 locations, 2 or 3 locations. One on the west side, one over here, and maybe a second one on the west side. And then I got hired in 2020. The next symposium that we held online. And then since that time, we've also held them online because they are, the budgets for travel right now for community colleges, the enrollment, of course, really statewide took a hit. And so we weren't concerned that people couldn't travel, but we do usually have more than 200 people who come to those statewide. They may be faculty, they may be advisors, they may be financial aid counselors. And we talk about transfer to CWU, but also issues that we're seeing more generally. Monica Medrano from our East Side centers has usually been my partner the last 3 years in doing that. And she has a real passion and depth of experience in working with students from underrepresented backgrounds. And so we've usually had at least one breakout that takes a look at underrepresented students. How are we supporting? How are we working together to really improve the pathway? Thank you for asking.
Any other questions?
I have one that's a little bit different. I'm a transfer student who wasn't required to do orientation. Am I able to do an orientation if I want? Later?
Sure.
Okay.
We wouldn't turn you away.
Okay.
And we always offered, transfer students were always able to come to orientation if they wanted to, but they weren't mandated to. And we still, at this point in time, do not require online students or center students to do an orientation, though, again, we do a virtual orientation and some welcome events at the centers.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Alrighty, thank you from the transfer center, to the transfer center, for giving that presentation. Next, since we have no old business, we'll be moving forward with the second call for public comment. Is there any public comment? Alrighty, seeing that there is none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Is there a motion? Adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing that there's a second, is there any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned at 2:54 p.m. Everyone. Have a good
Have a good weekend, guys.